All right, what's up, guys? We're back here at Bears Nation Podcast with another video. This time, myself, Lapka. I'm joined by the man himself, Rashab Sikri, but y'all know him as the Windy City Productions. How we doing, my man?
Doing pretty good, man. Bored with no football going on or really any sports right now that I'm that interested in. So waiting for football season, obviously.
Hey, we're ramping up. We had rookie mini camp. We got training camp in just a few months. It's going to get there. And we just got the schedule released, which is what we're here to break down today. The Bears 2022 schedule has been released, and we're going to go game by game and give our thoughts on the matchup each week for the Bears, all the way from week 1 to week 17. But before we get in it by week, looking at the schedule, just your overall reaction, your excitement, what do you feel about it? Are you feeling pretty positive, negative? I know we make a whole big deal out of schedule release, and the Bears video. I thought the Bears video on Twitter was pretty cool. Not as good as the Chargers or even the Cowboys, who feature Stephen A. Smith, but the Bears one was pretty solid. What do you make of the schedule initially and just the whole, reaction to it initially?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we all realize it's probably one of the easiest schedules we've had in a while, at least on paper. Now, obviously, it doesn't always work like that. Like, you can have an easy schedule on paper, then like a bunch of teams, you're going to play. They obviously got better over the offseason. So you never know how your schedule actually is going to be the following year. But I feel like last year was kind of like at the beginning of the season, we knew that we had a really tough schedule, and that's how it turned out. Like, we had one of the toughest schedules in the NFL. We played like a bunch of high caliber quarterbacks like Tom, like week after week, we had really tough quarterbacks we were playing. This year, we're not playing that many good quarterbacks. Like, a lot of them are either not rookies, but like sophomores, guys that aren't proven that much. And I think overall it is a very easy schedule, at least on paper. I know that some teams like the Jets, improved a lot. Other teams as well. Maybe the Lions also improved a decent amount, but I still think it should be a much, easier task on paper. But the question is, did the Bears improve enough to the point where it's going to be actually easy for us, right? Like, I think it's going to be a good challenge for us, but we should be able to win or at least perform better than we did last year against a really tough competition that we had.
That's the ultimate conversation, because there's three things that matter when you talk about, the way we break this down in May and before we play football in September. Everyone's going to go crazy about the predictions. Well, there's three things that really determine it. One is strength of schedule, which you mentioned. The Bears have an easy strength of schedule compared to the other teams in their division, like the Packers, and compared to the rest of the NFL. I think they're like 8th easiest among the whole NFL in strength of schedule. Two is, how did they perform in one-score games last year? There was 3 games last year that were one-score losses that could have very well gone their way had they gotten some takeaways, had they gotten, some calls where the guy was taunting or was not taunting. Thanks a lot, Tony Correnti. Things like that, right? And then the third thing is takeaways, which the Bears had some of the lowest in the NFL last year, and the third worst turnover differential at -13 in the league last year. Those 3 things matter the most when deciding or when predicting, rather, how the Bears are going to fare this year. But let's go right into it. Week 1. At home against the 49ers. It feels good to have a home opener. You love to do it in Chicago. Sunny weather. It's going to be warm at Soldier Field. Hopefully you get a nice sunny day against San Francisco, a team you played last year in Chicago as well. And this is the San Francisco team that made the NFC Championship last year, beat the foe Green Bay Packers, much to the chagrin of Bears fans to see that in the playoffs. But this is an interesting team going into this year. Is it Jimmy Garoppolo? Is it Trey Lance? Deebo Samuel was in the trade block. He should get an extension, but what is the relationship there? Your initial thoughts on the week 1 game against the 49ers at home in Chicago?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think it's going to be a tough game because they went to the NFC title game last year. They beat, a bunch of good teams. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Packers. Like, we were all super pumped up about. And, obviously we don't know if, who the quarterback is going to be. So that's going to be a big determining factor on how good they're actually going to be this year, especially in the game against us. Because I feel like if Trey Lance is out there, like, he's still kind of raw, right? Like, I know he had the last year to like develop and like practice, but he's only played in like maybe like 1 game last year he started, maybe a little bit more, but regardless, it wasn't that much. So if you have basically a rookie quarterback starting out his first game at Soldier Field, I know he has a good team around him, but I feel like our chances are much better, right, if Trey Lance is out there, even though, Jimmy Garoppolo has his limitations. But, young quarterbacks obviously make mistakes. So I think if Trey Lance is out there, I think the Bears will have a chance in this game simply because he's a young quarterback. I think our defense should be a lot better because we have a defensive head coach, a guy that, fielded a really good defense each of his years in Indy. And, I think if Jimmy G is out there, we could also put together a pretty good defensive performance, but I feel like it might give the edge to them simply because they beat us last year with Jimmy G, right? Like, Jimmy G and Deebo torched us going down the field like multiple times, and that sucks. So I think Bears obviously should fight in this game, but I think in my other video prediction that I did on YouTube, I predicted this as a loss for the Bears simply because, they're an NFC title contending team. And right now, don't know if we're exactly at that level.
Yeah, make sure you guys check out his channel, The Windy City Productions. He does videos all the time, and I already watched his schedule prediction video. It's a good one. So make sure to subscribe to his channel as well. But yeah, about the 49ers, the interesting thing to me is week 1 games to me are always a toss-up every single time. And when you look at the Bears, like, we have no idea how good they can be, because the argument for a lot of positive, non-pessimistic Bears fans, of which there are many, look, the Bears won 6 games last year with arguably the worst coach in the league and, the worst offensive scheme, some of the worst turnover differential in the NFL, and a rookie quarterback. And you say they won 6 games like that, and they were 3 one-score games away from winning 9 of them. That's an interesting take. So you don't know how they're going to come out week 1, but against the 49ers, this is a team to me that will not replicate what they did last year. I mean, they're going to be a good football team that is well coached. That is something that is constant, regardless of players that come in and out, is the coaching and how this team prepares for games. But week 1 is a toss-up, and the 49ers, I have them winning this game as well. I think the Bears are going to lose this game, but I would not be surprised if the Bears came in here with, everyone's doubting them, a little bit of an edge, say, hey, this is a 49ers team with potentially Trey Lance, first time playing. And I don't think this is a situation where, second year, didn't play his first year, he's going to be Patrick Mahomes. This is a guy who there has reportedly been issues with him in the organization in San Francisco as far as where his development is at. I think the Bears could come out firing and win this game at home on a hot day in Chicago, but we'll chalk it up as a loss. But I'm not counting it out. I think a win could be possible, but for the sake of rationality, we'll chalk it up as a loss for this video, just because I know the comments, Rashad, the comments are going to be in here saying, what the hell are you doing? Why are you predicting the Bears to be 10-7? This is outrageous. I don't really care, but we'll say it's a loss. But let's go to week 2. And this frustrates the hell out of me. Why do we have to play on Sunday Night Football against the Packers every time at Lambeau? Can we play Sunday Night Football at home one time? No, we cannot. So we go to Lambeau week 2, Sunday, September 18th, under the lights, Sunday Night Football. The Bears and the Packers have to be on Sunday Night Football one time each year because they love the Chicago market and the rivalry is too good. And the amount of, pregame videos they can make for it at NBC is phenomenal. But going to Green Bay week 2, you don't love that, but who do you got in this one? What do you like?
Yeah, I mean, I think being rational, obviously you have to go with the Packers here because they're going to be in Lambeau Field. I can't remember the last time we won at Lambeau Field. Was it the Thanksgiving game? The last time we won at Lambeau? That was like 6-7 years ago, right? I can't remember a time.
It has to be.
Yeah, it has been a very long time. So until I see us do it, like, I'm obviously not going to pick the Bears to win. But like you said, I mean, with all the energy we should have at the beginning of the season with the new head coach, with all these guys that want to prove all the doubters wrong, because national media right now thinks we're only winning like 3 or 4 games. Like, they actually think we're the worst team in the NFL, which I don't agree with that, obviously. Like, I think we will struggle at some points, but we're not going to be like the Lions or the Jaguars, in my opinion. But I'm looking at the Packers. Obviously, they got worse over the offseason, in my opinion. Biggest loss, Devontae Adams, by far. Aaron Rodgers, number 1 guy that's killed us so many times over the past couple of years. So not having him in this game will be a big loss for Aaron Rodgers, but they also, they drafted a bunch of receivers. Like, they got Christian Watson, they got Romeo Doubs. They signed Sammy Watkins too. So their offense still should be good, I think. And their defense, maybe got better too, right? Like, they used 2 first-round picks on defense. They got good linebacker, good defensive linemen. So right now you would have to give the edge to the Packers because they have Aaron Rodgers, the guy that's destroyed us over and over again. But I also would not be surprised if we kept it relatively close. Like, I don't think it's going to be as big of a blowout as Packers fans are going to think it is, just because I think our defense should be a lot better, next year. Like, we're not going to have the same
100%
lapses in coverage that we did last year with Kindle Vildor and all those guys. So
you talk about how teams lose games. Well, one of the fundamental ways that happens is game-breaking plays. I mean, you look at take the first game of the season last year and the first drive of the season. I believe it was the first drive that consisted of the Van Jefferson, 70-yard touchdown. And it's hard to recover from those things. And when that happens, you can get away with that happening, once every few games. But when that happens every game, multiple times a game, you can't overcome those things. But you have built a secondary that is built to prevent that, with Jaquan Brisker, who's a ball hawking safety who can do it all. Eddie Jackson, you got Kyler Gordon, who's an extremely good man-to-man athletic cornerback. And then you obviously have Jalen Johnson, who I think could be a Pro Bowler this year. The interesting thing about this game to me, as far as, a lot of the ways that we look at these games and predict them is, well, what did they do against these teams in the past, specifically last year? Against the Packers last year, you think about the last time they played them, that was the Bears were winning that game at halftime. I think, were they winning by 10 at halftime? I don't remember exactly how much. I think it was 10. They got off hot, and we were like, I think all of us really knew they weren't going to win the game. We were like, this smells like Aaron Rodgers coming back to defeat us once again. But the thing that we saw with Matt Nagy the past 4 years, specifically last year, was this team did not know how to close games. They would get up, they would be up in the fourth quarter. You think about against the 49ers, you think, against the Packers and a few other games last year, they'd get up and they would just collapse in the end. If they can get up this time and they have a defense that's built to get that game winning takeaway, which is how a lot of teams win games, that final takeaway in the final drive, they're built to do that with the Matt Eberflus defense that is takeaway prone. I think they could stay in this game, but again, like you said, for the sake of rationality, we'll take that as well. So the Bears 0-2 going into week 3. And then this is the interesting thing about the Bears 2022 schedule. They have multiple stints of very easy runs. And you look at the first one starting week 3, Sunday, September 25th at home. So they're back at home against the Texans. Noon start. The thing I love about this schedule, actually, no 3:05 starts. Enough of the 3:05, if nothing like a Bears at noon game. Against the Texans, you talk about teams that are projected to be the worst in the league. This is one of them. What do you make with this one?
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see Lovie Smith come back to Chicago.
That's right.
Obviously got hired from the Texans. So not sure if this is his first game back at Soldier Field. I don't know if we played them when he was with the Bucs. I can't remember if he went back to Soldier Field or not. But regardless, it's been a while, right? It's been a long time since he's been back in the NFL, and he's going to be going back to Chicago. So it's going to be interesting to see what the fan base's reaction is going to be. Obviously, most Bears fans love Lovie Smith. He was our last actual good coach that had us looking respectable at any point in the last 2 decades. So the Lovie storyline will be pretty cool. But besides that, I don't think, like you said, the Texans are not going to be a very good football team this year. They did get some solid pieces in the NFL draft, but rookies don't always ball out at the beginning, right? They still have so many holes on offensive line, maybe at quarterback. Who knows if Davis Mills is a real deal? I know he had some good games down the stretch last year, but I don't is he going to replicate that? I don't personally think so. I think they're probably going to be drafting a quarterback next year. So this should be a game that the Bears can win. And I think this will be our first victory of the season.
I do as well. I just think the matter of victory or how you get that victory matters as well. You talk about what makes good teams. Well, good teams pounce on bad teams. And if you really want to think you're a good team in 2022, you have to beat a team like the Texans by 20. You can't go and win this game by 3 points. And the Bears did that a few times last year. They beat the Giants 29-3. They beat the Lions by 10 the first time. But you got to be pouncing on these teams, and you got to keep your foot on the gas pedal the whole game and say, look, we're not letting Lovie Smith in his return to Chicago get anywhere near us in this final game. And I think they're equipped to do that. Again, this Texans team, there's a lot of question marks. I don't think that it's going to be close at all, but I would like to see the Bears absolutely destroy them at home. And that's a thing too. Good teams win a lot of games at home. And the Bears did that in 2018. They were winning their biggest games at home against the Vikings Sunday Night Football, against the Rams on Sunday Night Football. You have to protect your city. They did not do that the years after 2018, and they didn't do it last year. They were 3-5 at home last year. I would like to still better at home than on the road last year. I think they were 3-6 on the road last year. They have to be better at home. Protect Soldier Field. Who knows how long we'll have it? We might have it for 3 more years or 4 more years before they go to Arlington. Let's win some games for the fans at Soldier Field. But let's go to week 4. We got the Bears. We're both going to win against the Texans. We got the Bears at 1-2 going into week 4, Sunday, October 2nd at New York, in New Jersey. New York Football Giants, noon kick again. This is a team. We don't really know what's going on with Daniel Jones. Is he going to play? What's the deal? What do you like in this one?
Bears, man, hopefully by a lot. I know they had a pretty good draft. Especially with our pick. They got Evan Neal, got a good left tackle. They got, good. Overall, they got pretty good pieces in the NFL draft. So I think they will be improved next year, but they're still not the level that I feel like the Bears are right now. They don't have a Roquan Smith. They don't have an Eddie Jackson. They don't have a lot of pieces that we have, especially on the defense and also some on the offense. Do they have a Darnell Mooney? They have decent level receiving cores, but Daniel Jones, always misses them. So I think the Bears should be winning this game, hopefully by a lot, because it's basically the same Giants team as last year, and we blew out that Giants team by a lot of points. They got a better coach now. They got some pieces in the draft, but I don't think they did enough to compete with the Bears here. So hopefully, like you said, like we blow them out because you want to be, blowing bad teams out. But I'll be happy with the win regardless.
You make a good point about the Bears have Roquan Smith, they have an Eddie Jackson, they have a Jalen Johnson, they have a Darnell Mooney. People look at the Bears roster and they think it's not very good. And yeah, there's holes in the roster, there's areas that could be improved. But the thing that the Bears roster has versus other teams that you could put in that rebuilding tier, if you're a retooling tier, you want to categorize all of them, is the Bears do have those marquee players. And a lot of other teams don't. Like, do the New York Jets have a marquee player? Do the New York Giants have a marquee player? Like, there's a lot of guys who could be, but we have proven marquee players at this moment. And I think Darnell Mooney is one of them. And there's a lot of talk about, I'm seeing tweets about the U.S. prison system has a better wide receiver core than the Chicago Bears and all this stuff. And, the Bears, where's the help for Justin Fields? I think a lot of the narrative about the Bears wide receiver core comes from the fact that people believe Darnell Mooney is not a number one wide receiver because he hasn't been that yet. He hasn't been in that role yet. Statistically, he has. If you look at his numbers, statistically, he has. I think Darnell Mooney is a number one wide receiver, and I think he's going to show that this year. And I think that will change people's opinion on the Bears, wide receiver core and roster overall. But to this game, yes, they're a better team. They have better players. I think this is going to be a team that's going to need more adjusting. They don't have a direction, the New York Giants, in my opinion, right now, which is the funny thing about them and how you compare them to the Bears is I would predict them to win this game at this given point if they had drafted Justin Fields last year, and we had not. And that's why you sure, they got Evan Neal, they get picks, great. They get, whatever they want to get from it. A quarterback is winning you football games in the future. The Bears got that over the New York Football Giants, and hopefully they did it last year. Hopefully they do it again. They showed them, hey, you made the wrong choice by trading us that pick, but we ain't complaining because we are very thankful to the New York Football Giants for doing that. But we're doing that as a win. So, Bears are 2-2 going into week 5. We'll try to speed this up a little bit because I know we're going a little slow. October 9th at Minnesota. This is a Minnesota team that people think is going to be pretty good. Do you agree with that? What do you think the Bears do at Minnesota in week 5?
I don't think they're going to be as good as people are saying. Like, I think they obviously have the potential to make the playoffs because they have good playmakers. They have really good receiver. They have, a new head coach that maybe could be good, but he's never called plays before. So he's the total unknown too. And Kirk Cousins he's decent, but he's nothing special. Like, he's not a top 10 quarterback in my opinion. So I think since we'll be in Minnesota, I think in my video, I put this as a loss simply because I think we're probably going to split with Minnesota at this, at the point where the Bears are right now, but I'd be happy with the split here. So I think the first game will be a loss in Minnesota.
I agree with that as well.
Playmakers they have.
100%. I mean, they're going to be a tough team offensively, man. I mean, Justin Jefferson to me is going to be this year the best wide receiver in the league. And we know when Dalvin Cook is healthy, he's top 3 running back in the league. But it's just, the thing that the Kirk Cousins kryptonite is takeaways though. So if the Bears are really getting a defense that is prone to get takeaways, and you saw what they did last year against him in that second game on Monday Night Football. I mean, I think he had like the lowest passing yard total on Monday Night Football history, like 38 passing yards or something. Like it was ridiculous. So you never know. I mean, this is a Vikings team that could not beat the Bears with Mitch Trubisky, whether it was at home or on the road. So we'll see. I will agree with you though. I think this is a better Vikings team than maybe last year. I don't think this is a powerhouse top 5 team in the NFC Vikings team, but this is a good enough team that should hold their own at a very loud stadium in Minnesota. So we'll chalk that up as a loss for the Bears. So 2-3 going into week 6, our first primetime game. The Bears have 3 of them this year, which is, usually they'll have 4 or 5, but given where the Bears are at right now, you can't expect them to have that many. And they're obviously going to get one Thursday night game. And that is the first one right here, week 6, Thursday, October 13th against the Washington Commanders, the Carson Wentz led Washington Commanders at home. You always like to see primetime games at home. There's a lot of statistics that say that the home team on primetime is typically favored. This is a Washington Commanders team to me that also is sort of playing a roulette game with quarterbacks. Who's going to be next? Ryan Fitzpatrick, Carson Wentz. Who's it going to be year after year? Let's not even, groom a rookie. Tyler Heineke. Who's it going to be? This is Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has arguably to me the lowest ceiling of all the starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Not much for me from Carson on Thursday night, week 6. Bears 2-3 going in this one. What do you like?
I like the Bears here too. Like you said, Carson Wentz, I'm not a big believer in him. I don't think a lot of people are. That's why the Colts gave him away for practically nothing. And Also Eberflus, our defensive coordinator, like he knows Carson Wentz
That's a good point.
way better than everybody else does. Like he went up against his offense
Mm-hmm.
in practice basically every single day. So he has some inside details on Carson Wentz that maybe other teams don't even have. So I think our defense should have a pretty big game in this one. Carson Wentz is prone to turn the football over like we've seen so many times. So if we can get takeaways in this game, this should be a game the Bears win, especially at home with Soldier Field, hopefully rocking.
Yep. I mean, you talk about those takeaways. Carson Wentz is a guy who typically throws a lot of interceptions or fumbles the football because his pocket awareness hasn't been great after the injury. This should be a win for the Bears. Now, I'd be very surprised if it wasn't. And the thing is, when we look at this schedule, I know we've all kind of predicted at this point, the games we're expected to win, the games we're expected to lose, and we're doing that accordingly. But as we come down here, as we start to go into week 7 against the Patriots, this is where things start to change for me. If you say the Bears are 3-3 going into week 7, they're playing better. That means this is a team that can compete. This is a team that's real. They obviously have real talent to beat teams. Hopefully the matter in which they're beating some of the teams early in the season is by a lot of points. And this is a Patriots team to me that they're good, but they're beatable. Mac Jones versus Justin Fields. To me, Justin Fields is the better quarterback, and he will prove that this year. His situation just wasn't as good last year. And they get back-to-back primetime games, the Bears do, Thursday, then Monday. That's 10 days of rest. Is that 11? That's 11 days of rest. I mean, they get a ton of rest here. They play from October 13th to October 24th. They're going to be well rested. Although it's in New England, do you think the Bears pull off the upset week 7 to move to 4-3?
I do actually. I did predict that in my video too.
Okay.
Because I also, dude, I think that Mac Jones, nobody's talking about, but his supporting cast got way worse.
Good point.
In terms of his play caller is no longer going to be there. Like, who's even calling plays right now for the Patriots? Like, literally nobody knows. It could be Bill Belichick. It could be, the other guys that they hired. Nobody actually knows. So I think that uncertainty, at least on paper, that's there. I know that Bill Belichick eventually figures stuff out. So it's still going to be decent around him, but they don't have crazy playmakers right now. They traded away Shaq Mason for a 5th-round pick. They drafted a guy in the 1st round, Cole Strange, who he's good, but a lot of people thought he was a reach. And they also reached on Tyquan Thornton, right? Like in the 2nd round or 3rd, I forgot what round it was, but it was somewhat of a reach. So I don't think the Patriots supporting cast around Mac Jones is that good as people are saying, which is why I think this is going to be a win, because like you mentioned, I think that Justin Fields is a much better quarterback overall than Mac is.
There's 2 things that you bring up that really stick out to me. One, you talk about the supporting cast of New England Patriots. I'll read you their top 3 receivers right now. It's Kendrick Bourne, it's Jacoby Myers, and it's Devontae Parker. Is that receiving core that much better than the Bears? Legitimately,
I honestly think Mooney would be their number 1 there.
100%.
Might be biased, but I think so, man. Like
100%. And like they're like Nelson Aguilar, Tyquan Thornton, Nikhil Harry, like they're definitely like. I don't know. I'm just saying there hasn't been a lot of talk about the New England Patriots supporting cast when all the talks about Justin Fields supporting cast and all of this and all that. But the other thing you brought up was the play caller. And here's what's interesting. I've been watching the Tom Brady documentary on ESPN plus Man in the Arena. It's really good. And, it's about all of his years and really the whole teams, the New England Patriots teams, back when he was a rookie all the way up to before he left to Tampa. And there was a period of time, they were a dynasty that won 3 titles in I think 5 years back in like the early 2000s. And then Josh McDaniels left and became a head coach for like 3 years. And those 3 years, they were not a good team. They were, they either missing the playoffs or getting to the playoffs and then losing. And then Josh McDaniels came back and boom, then they go, 16-0 season. They come back. Although they lost in the Super Bowl that year, they start to become a better team. You're right about the play caller. That is real. About how, and don't get me wrong, Patriots fans, and I have a few of them in my circle who hated Josh McDaniels as his play calling last year and are probably happy that he's gone. But clearly he's got some sort of, he just, the way he works with quarterbacks, especially younger ones, is obviously legitimate. I think there's, we just don't know how that team is going to be with a different play caller, but we'll take it, a win. So it's an upset win. Our first upset win. We'll say the Bears are 4-3 going to week 8. One of the tougher games on the schedule, Sunday, October 30th at Dallas, Jerry's World against the Cowboys at noon. Year after year for the past 3 years, this is a Cowboys team that's supposed to make the Super Bowl, built to make the Super Bowl, and America's team falls short year after year. God knows if they'll do it this year. This is a, on paper, very good Cowboys team that can threaten you in a lot of ways. Yes, they lose Amari Cooper, but they still have offensive prowess across the board, including CeeDee Lamb. Ezekiel Elliott might be washed up. I don't know. Tony Pollard could be better at this point. We don't know. Still a good team. in Dallas. Do they pull off the upset in this one in Jerry's World on Sunday, October 30th, week 8?
Probably not. I mean, we probably have a chance just because it's the Cowboys. They've choked against us in the past. Like, even when we weren't good, like 2019, you remember Mitch had that crazy game
Yes.
at Soldier Field against the Cowboys. Like, that was one of the most exciting moments of that year. Probably the only exciting moment of that year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the Cowboys in the regular season, they're a really good football team usually. Like, they choke in the playoffs, obviously, but usually in the regular season, they can pull out these wins against, on paper, the Bears are a lesser team than the Cowboys. Like, obviously, Cowboys have a more proven quarterback in Dak Prescott because he's just been in the NFL for a long time. Probably better weapons, I would say, as of now. Although I don't know if Michael Gallup will be back at this point. Probably will be, I think. But
probably, I think.
Yeah. Regardless, I mean, I think the Cowboys will probably win this one, but it should be pretty close, I think.
And that's the thing too, is like, you don't want to see the Bears get beat 38-3 like they did against the Buccaneers last year against good teams. You want to see them hold their own.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I don't think many teams will be beating the Bears by that much, just because their defense should be a lot better this year.
100%. I agree. And, and that's what's so weird about football. And like, it's so hard to predict these games in 2022, but even against the best teams, like we do this on May 16th, as we're doing it right now, as if zero upsets are going, as if the craziest upsets won't happen. Like the upsets will happen. If you've been watching the NFL, I mean, it's just logic. The upsets will happen. And, one takeaway here, one takeaway there, it can happen. I'm not saying the Bears are going to win this game, but don't look at this being like, oh, automatic L, like, let's just cross it off immediately. Like, no, if the Bears play good football, play smart football, don't give the ball away and take the ball away, there's no reason they can't beat most of the teams on the schedule, aside from, the Bills and maybe the Packers. Like, those things can happen. So I'll also chalk this up as an L because I think Dallas is a very, very good team at home. And typically they'll get beat at home against their division rivals, but they do pretty well against teams outside of their division. So I'll do a loss for this one. So that would put the Bears at 4-4. You're still in contention. There's 7, seeds in the NFC playoff picture. You could be 9-8 and make the playoffs. So 4-4 going into week 9, Sunday, November 6th versus the Dolphins. A Dolphins team that just said, screw it. Let's trade for everybody. Let's give up picks. Let's give up money. Let's try to bring up in as much talent as they can. But guess what? As of right now, your quarterback ain't too talented. That's what matters more than anything. In my opinion, he's not too talented. What do you think about the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, and how the Bears fare in this one?
Dolphins are a good team for sure. I mean, they have good playmakers now. They got Tyreek Hill, probably the most dynamic, explosive receiver in the NFL. They got Jalen Waddle. They have really good supporting cast around Tua. They also got a really good left tackle too. So I think that I'm not a big believer in Tua. I don't know about you, but I don't think he's going to be more than an above average quarterback in the NFL. But I think in my video, I still predict this as a loss for the Bears just because their supporting cast around Tua is a lot better at this point. Their defense also was pretty good last year. I know they lost Brian Flores, but it really depends on like where the Bears are at this point. Like if we are at the record we are at right now, then we should have a chance to win this, right? Because we've been winning games. But I don't know, like just being a little bit more pessimistic as of now, I will pick the Dolphins to win, but I would not be surprised at all if the Bears pull this off because Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Tua is, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, you can have all the playmakers you want. I mean, they have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson, Mike Gesicki, Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, Myles Gaskin. Like they have an insane number of wide receiver, running back, tight end threats on this team. But as we saw in the Twitter video, if he's underthrowing them, then it doesn't matter. It's like the iconic, it's like that iconic little graphic. I think there's like, it's the guy throwing the ball, and then there's a line. It's like it's Tua, and then it's going right over Tyreek Hill's head. And I'll say this about the Dolphins: I think the Bears can and will win this game, actually. But I think Tyreek Hill is going to look back at this year and say, shit, I made the biggest mistake of my life. Hey, come on, man. I mean, like the thing about Tyreek Hill and what I think the Bears have an opportunity to do with their speed receivers is a lot of the receivers on the Kansas City Chiefs offense made a lot of their yards and a lot of their receptions off of what Patrick Mahomes did after the play. So the pocket breaks down, Patrick Mahomes rolls out. Well, guess what? Tyreek Hill can find a million holes in the defense as Patrick Mahomes is buying 3 to 4 extra seconds. Tua can't do that like Patrick Mahomes can. And Justin Fields has the same ability to do that. And that's why they brought in playmakers who can find holes, who are speed players, who can run routes well, and who can find holes in the defense. So when Justin Fields breaks the pocket, as he inevitably will, because he's one of the fastest players in the NFL, where are those guys that are going to be open? That's what you're going to see. But I think Tyreek Hill made a mistake and by requesting the trade, but we'll
Yeah.
see about that in 2023. I think the Bears win this game. Rashad thinks they lose. I think it's a toss-up. I think this is one of those that really could go back and forth. It just depends on what happens on Sunday, November 6th. But let's go to week 10 now. And this is the first game against the Lions. The Lions fan base really wants to believe they're winning the Super Bowl this year. Apparently, don't get me wrong. Great draft for the Detroit Lions. You got good players. You got Aiden Hutchinson and Jameson Williams. Again, you don't have a quarterback. Jared Goff isn't winning you 11 games this year. In my opinion, he's not. So Sunday, November 13th versus the Lions at home. Again, another noon kick, week 10. I think the Bears take this one, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, like the Dolphins, they do have good playmakers around Jared Goff, but Jared Goff himself is not good. And unlike the Dolphins, they don't have a good defense on paper. Like the Dolphins at least had pretty decent defense on paper last year. I don't know who the Lions have, as proven talent on the defense. Obviously, they drafted Aiden Hutchinson. They have a couple guys in that defense, but secondary is largely unproven. So I think that Justin Fields, again, is going to torch them going down the field like he did last time. So this should be win for the Bears, I think.
I agree. And this starts another stretch of sort of the easier games for the Bears. And they get kind of lucky throughout this schedule, or at least in this stretch, that they get to play some of the bad teams on the road and some of the good teams at home in this upcoming stretch. Because now I'm going to win as well against Detroit. And now you go to Atlanta, which I think could be the worst team in the NFL this year. Again, they have a few pieces, but it's the same thing as the Lions and as the Dolphins, who's playing quarterback. Is Desmond Ridder playing quarterback for you? Even if he is, I don't think that's too ideal. You could have had Malik Willis. You took Desmond Ridder. Maybe I'll be proven wrong in the future. But as of right now, this is a team that's going to win no more than 5 games, in my opinion. You go to Atlanta week 11, Sunday, November 20th. This to me is another win and opportunity to stack 2 wins. I think there's no way they lose this game, right?
I mean, there's always a chance, I guess.
Well, there's always a way. But
we've seen our team do it against lesser teams before, but yeah, this should be a win for the Bears. Like I can't see a way in which the Falcons beat us without us choking, because we have much better not playmakers, but the entire team is better than what the Falcons have right now. I know Falcons fans think otherwise, but Justin Fields is way better than Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder, or whoever they have at quarterback. And that, with the defense, that should be enough for the Bears to pull out this win, I think.
Yeah, and there's, the question is, can the Bears go as far as Justin Fields takes them? And I think that's true to an extent. I do think Justin Fields is going to, I don't know if he's going to be a 4,000 yard passer this year. I think he's going to be, 3,700 yards, 900 rushing yards, because that's just what he does. I don't know if he's going to hit 4,000 this year. Maybe that'll be next year. But I do think to an extent the Bears only go as far as Justin Fields can take them. But if you project Justin Fields to have those type of numbers and to be that successful, then they should win 9 to 10 games. I mean, that if your quarterback is playing that well with a defense that you think is going to hold its own and get takeaways, they should win that many games, and they shouldn't lose games like this against Atlanta. So based for that reason, I'm taking this as a win as well. And that would be back-to-back wins against Detroit, then Atlanta, before you go to week 12 at New York. So again, 2 road games. You don't love to see back-to-back road games on the schedule, which they have 3 times this year, which is crazy. I mean, you go back-to-back against the Giants and the Vikings on October 2nd, October 9th. Then you go back-to-back against the Patriots and the Cowboys, which is 2 back-to-back tough games on the road. And then you get back-to-back easier games on the road against the Falcons and the Jets. To me, this is another win week 12 against a team that has, like, they could surprise a little bit of people if Zach Wilson gets better. They got a little bit of talent. It's not, to me, a 9-win team or a 10-win team, but this is a team that I think could upset a few teams. I just don't know if I'm comfortable right now saying that they're able to beat the Bears, even though it is on the road. I think the Bears win this game.
Yeah, all depends on Zach Wilson. Like you said, if he takes a step up into being like a top tier quarterback, maybe if he even has the step up that Mitch did in 2018, like even that level, then maybe they could win this game. But can't remember what I said in my video, but I would probably say the Bears win this too, just because overall, like, we have more blue chip players, I think, proven blue chip players than the Jets do. The Jets have a lot of potential great players, but I think that the Bears should have more talent here to pull it off. And yeah, I also think that Justin Fields should have been the second quarterback taken after Trevor Lawrence in the draft. Like, I still don't get why Zach Wilson was drafted number 2, or why Justin Fields even fell as far as he did, but I'm not complaining, obviously. So hopefully Bears win this.
We call that the Patrick Mahomes effect. People fell in love with the raw
Yeah.
talent, the raw arm ability, and I think they reach for that. I really do. I mean, think about it. It's like after that one play at Pro Day where he rolled out and threw that thing, side armed, off balance.
Oh,
Everyone's
yeah.
like, "Oh my God, he's the next Mahomes," and you're like, "Well,
Funny thing
he
is,
might
Justin
not."
Fields kind of did something similar at his
He
pro day.
did. He literally did. That's what's funny. I mean, I think he should have been the second quarterback taken. I think like Justin Fields is a very like he seems like the guy to me that is like out for revenge. And I could see him going to New York in this game, being like,
Oh yeah.
screw you. You should have taken me. But you know what? I bet he wouldn't want to be with the Jets anyway, because that organization is just in the mud. But this becomes, to me, we're going into week 13, the most interesting stretch of the season. Starting at home against Green Bay, the Bears have 3 straight home games. And for the first time, I think they said since like the early 2000s, the Bears will not play a single game on the road in December. All of their home games will be all of their games will be at home in Chicago in December. That screams awesome things for Bears fans. You're thinking negative, 2-degree weather, wind chill is -10, bear football. And there's people who are at this point, starting to question whether bear football really exists. But there is truth to those things. Against the Packers, not so much because they play in that climate typically. And I guess the Bills as well, who you see in week 16. But nonetheless, playing at home in Soldier Field in December is something you like. And they do it week 13. I think this, and I said this twice last year, and I feel like an idiot after doing it. I said, one of these games against the Packers is going to be the changing of the guard, where it went from Aaron Rodgers to and I said that last year because I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to retire at the end of the year. I was wrong, or go to a different team rather. I thought it was going to be a change in the guard where Justin Fields said, "Hey, I just won this game. I'm the king of the North now." Maybe week 13, Sunday, December 4th, at home against Green Bay is the time that he does this change in the guard. He says, "I'm here to stay. No longer it's Aaron Rodgers the next 10 years. It's me. I own the North." I think they could win this game, and I think they might. I don't know if they're hot. If they win 3 in a row, Lions, Falcons, Jets, and they got some steam coming back home against the Packers, and maybe if the Packers aren't formidable at that point, maybe they're struggling a little bit, pounce on them. I think they could win this game.
We could have beat them last year, man. Even the first game against the Packers, you saw. I mean, we were about to go ahead after that, or then that horrible call happened, right? Like they or it was like an interception. I forgot exactly what happened, but they had a bunch of bad calls in that game as usual, against the Packers. But in the first game, dude, against the Packers, if our defense got, a couple stops down the stretch, we could have easily tied that game up and maybe even won. Like we actually played relatively decent in that game. And I'll probably say it's a loss just because I don't want to be like too, I guess, give the appearance of being biased, because obviously Packers fans are going to say this, or they're going to see this and they're going to be like, "Oh, Bears fans, obviously you're going to be picking the Bears to win one game, even though we've beat you." So I will pick the Packers to win simply because I got to see it before I predicted. But I'm sure by this time next season in my YouTube videos, I'll probably be predicting this as a win. If the Bears are actually at the point they are at right now, like playing pretty good football on a winning streak. So possible, but probably won't predict it right now.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that because I think there's a few games. I don't know. Screw it. I'm taking a win. You know what? Why not? Look, I have total belief in that at some point Justin Fields is going to outperform Aaron Rodgers, and that's going to be the moment. I mean, we've seen those moments in NFL history before, right? Where it's the Brady versus Mahomes thing, and although Brady destroyed him in the Super Bowl, there's been different moments in the playoffs when there was Chiefs and Patriots. Like there's been times where we've seen the young versus the old, this guy is up next. And I think that could be the moment. So I'll screw it. Let's do it. Let's do a win. And then week 14, they get the bye, a late bye. You'd like to maybe see a bye a little bit earlier. The good thing for the Bears is they don't travel to Mexico City. They don't travel to London. They don't have to, I think they travel. I saw that chart. They travel they're in the lower echelon of like miles traveled on the year.
Oh yeah, second lowest, I think. Yeah,
second lowest. I think the Seahawks travel like 38,000. They're like 34 different time zones. I'm like, bro, where are they going, man? Like, and while the Steelers don't travel to any time zones aside from the Eastern time zone, which to me does not seem fathomable. But by week 14, I'm fine with that. I wish it was a little earlier, maybe, but I hate the bye week because there's no Bears football. So we like to delay it. But let's go to week 15 now. This is an interesting game to me. Again, part of the 3-game home stretch versus the Eagles, a toss-up team, in my opinion. I'm not too scared of them at home, December 18th. Do they pull off the win this time?
Yeah, it all depends on Jalen Hurts. Like a lot of these games that we're playing, it all depends on the quarterback because a lot of the teams that are playing, they surrounded their quarterbacks with pretty good
Mm-hmm.
talents. Like Dolphins did, Jets did. All depends on if the quarterback is going to take the next step up. And I think that Jalen Hurts, especially with he got or he who they trade for AJ Brown. They traded for AJ Brown this year,
Yes.
which is in my opinion, he is the number one option on that team. And
Oh yeah.
their defense already was getting better. And I think the jury is still out for Jalen Hurts. Like I'm not the biggest believer. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if he's gonna be like a top tier quarterback, but I think I did pick this as a win for the Eagles just because on paper they probably do have more talent than the Bears do. But like this is another game that I would not be surprised if the Bears did win because it's not a team that's gonna be like a world beater in my opinion. Like they might be good this year, but I don't know if they're gonna be like the level of like a Bills or a Packers team. So I obviously Bears have a chance, but I guess I'll probably put this as a loss for the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this is sort of a toss up. Like, there's people don't really know what they have in Jalen Hurts. There was actually questions at some point about whether they would draft a guy, whether they would, try things out with Gardner Minshew. Like they like Jalen Hurts has his limitations. He does. He's a great rushing quarterback, but he doesn't do it in the biggest moments. We know his passing limitations are there. So we'll see. I mean, you can see the Eagles lose games earlier in the year and maybe even make a quarterback switch at this point. Like I don't even think that's
Yeah.
out of the question, depending on what they believe in with Gardner Minshew. Like I just I don't know. I think it's possible, but I'm gonna take it as a loss as well. And then they go Christmas Eve, week 16 against the Bills. To me, will be the best team in the league this year. This is their time to win the AFC. I don't know if they will do it because the AFC is just ridiculous. And I'm so lucky. We're so lucky the Bears are not in the AFC because I don't know who the hell is going to come out of that conference year after year with the amount of quarterbacks that are there. It just blows my mind. But NFC matchup, NFC AFC matchup, Bears versus Bills, Christmas Eve. We're feeling good. It's Christmas time, Santa Claus, all that stuff. Do they pull off the upset on Christmas Eve at home against the Bills?
Doubt it, man. I wish, but yeah, like you said, I mean, I think the Bills are probably going to be the best team in the NFL. I really like Josh Allen. I think he's almost on that tier. I mean, he is in the same tier with Patrick Mahomes. He might even be a better overall quarterback eventually. Like obviously, Patrick Mahomes has a playoff success, but I think that Josh Allen's arm, it's up there with the best in the NFL. So I really like Josh Allen. I like all the other pieces that they have. They have good defense too. So this is just a case of a team that's Super Bowl contender this year. And I don't think the Bears are a contender this year. So I think this should be a game that Bills should win on paper. But you never know also. Like the Bills did choke against the Jaguars late last year. So anything is possible.
There was a few games last year where, the Bills kind of got stunned. I mean, they lost to the Patriots by 4. They lost to the Colts by like 26. They lost to the Jaguars 9-6 earlier in the year. Like you mentioned, like these upsets can happen. I'm not gonna say it's gonna happen, but again, don't just look at the Bills and be like, "Oh my God, the Bills!" Like, like you have to dissect these things deeper at home. On Christmas Eve, anything goes. You never know. I'll chalk this up as a loss as well, though. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears come out and they play with a little fire and they potentially hopefully come out with a win. But then week 17, they play on New Year's Day, so that's back to back like holiday games at Detroit. I don't think Detroit's that good of a team, but I think the Bears could lose this game. This is like I haven't done any of these so far that I think the Bears lose to a team that they're supposed to beat. I think this might be the time where they do it. If the Lions really start to click this year and things really start to come together and they start to look like a better team, I think there's a chance that by week 17 they could figure themselves out. They could have an identity at home. The Bears have sort of struggled to beat the Lions at home. Like they've been winning the games, but they haven't been good football games on the road for the Bears. I think they actually lose this game against Detroit. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it at all. But I think they could lose this game on the road if Detroit kind of figures themselves out. If they don't, I think the Bears blow them out. But I think this is a game that they could lose on the road against Detroit on New Year's Day.
Yeah, exact same. I mean, even in my video, I predicted this as the Lions win, which like I don't want to say it obviously. Like I think the Bears are a much better team than the Lions, but every year the Bears lose at least 1 or 2 games, like 2 teams that we're not supposed to lose to. And this might be one of those games. It might be a trap game. It's going to be in Detroit. They're going to be pumped up. They'll probably have a bad record at this point, and they're going to be wanting to win games just for pride, I guess, for their coach. And yeah, I mean, even the offensive weapons that they have, like with Jared Goff, they should be able to put together at least some good performances. Like Jared Goff is mostly mediocre, but every once in a while he'll go off for like a pretty good stat line. So I think it's unfortunately might be one game that should be a trap game for the Bears. They should win, but might lose.
Agreed. We have to do one of them. And look, the Lions are a fighting team, man. Like last year, they fought in a lot of games. And I don't want to give them too much credit in case the Lions fans somehow find this video and get after it in the comments. But man, for the Lions fans, you have sort of a promising future as far as, you know, the way your team plays from, you know, an energy standpoint and effort standpoint. And then, of course, the surrounding pieces is just how many mistakes will Jared Goff make? And that will determine who wins this game. But the final game of the year, Week 18. I guess we just had to end the season against the Vikings every year. I guess that's just how it has to be. I don't know, who did we end it with last year? It was
the Vikings.
Was it the Vikings last year? Why? I feel like I can't remember.
It was
that last game. Yeah.
It was a game we got. We went for it on 4th down like 7 times. Remember?
Oh, that's right.
We only got like one of those times.
It's like screw it. That's right. Yeah, screw it. You know, it's the last game of the year. You're 6-10. Might as well. That's funny, actually. Yeah, and Andy Dalton played that game. I forget. Andy Dalton played that game.
He did, yeah.
He had 2 picks, and the Bears lost by 14. Just that's sad. But I think the Bears win this game at home against Minnesota. Final game of the year. It's to be determined what date it is. It says it's either January 7th or January 8th, and we don't know what time it is. But it's Week 18, final game of the season. I think they pull off the win, which, and quite frankly, the way I predicted these games so far, this could be a game that gets you into the playoffs. If you win, you're in. And it could be that you are going up against the Vikings. Say you're like 9-8. And quite frankly, there's a chance that it could shake out that the Bears could be like 8-8 going into this game, or 9-8 going into this, or what am I trying to say? Like 8-8 going into this game. And if they lose, they're like 8-9 or something. Or if they're let me rephrase that, 7-9. And if they win, they're 8-9 and they get in, because the NFC to me is a very weak conference. And I think an 8-9 team could get in if some of those teams that we project to be good, like the Eagles, kind of underperform, or even the Cowboys or something like that. It's bound to happen to one of these teams. I think the Bears could, or any team really could, get in at 8-9. But I think this could be a game where both of these teams are sort of neck and neck. Whoever wins this game gets into the postseason potentially with that 7th seed. I'm not going to say it's any higher. And I think the Bears win this game. I think they do at home against Minnesota. Final game of the year. It's cold. Soldier Field to be ready to go. I think they win this game.
Yeah, we're not going to get swept by the Vikings, in my opinion. I know I
can't happen
to lose the first one. We're not going to get swept. Vikings fans are super pumped up about their team, which I understand, but Kirk Cousins isn't the type of quarterback. I don't think he's ever beaten us. Or last year I guess they did beat us twice, but that's partly because we're basically tanking down the stretch, man. It was such a bad year. Like Matt and I just completely gave up. Our entire team just completely gave up. So this year should be a lot more, it should be a lot more invested in terms of like the team's effort down the stretch, because the coach is staying here at least, hopefully 2 or 3 or longer, after this. So I think this should be a win for the Bears.
Yeah, and I'm chalking up as a win as well. So I think my final record for the Bears, if they win that last game, is 10-7. That is my final record. I think yours, what was yours, 8-9 or 9-8? Or 7?
I think mine was 8-9. I might have predicted I think I changed one of my predictions. So it might have been 9-8 in this video, but in my other prediction, it was like 8-9. But regardless, like it's basically the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I lost track at some point. Like I think once we got to like week 12, I was like, shit, I lost track. But if you want to know what he really thinks, you can check out his YouTube, The Windy City Productions, my man. Thank you for coming on. Let's hope for a great season for the Bears this year, man.
Let's hope so. I think people are sleeping on the Bears. There's no way we're going to only win like 3 or 4 games like the national media is saying. And Ryan Poles does not hate Justin Fields like people have been writing every single week. So
yeah. He doesn't, and we can always, at least for this year, use the whole Bengals situation. Oh, they were projected to win 3 games and they made the Super Bowl. We'll hold on to that for as long as we can.
Even the Eagles, dude. Even the Eagles were projected to win like 3 games last year. They made the playoffs, and that's good enough for the Bears this year. We don't have to be a Bengals team this year.
100%. Just make the play. If you make the playoffs this year, you're in perfect position because you can spend $1 million. You have the most cap space in the league next year. You're gonna have a 1st-round draft pick. You're gonna have a ton of picks. It should be good. Let's hope they do it. My man, thank you for coming on again. Please check out his channel, The Windy City Production. He's done some great work, and we're lucky to have him on today. So appreciate you, and take care, my man.
Thanks, man.